Well, let's move into the next topic. We're talking about the saga and the ongoing developing saga with Bryan Colangelo, the current president of basketball operations for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Ringer put out an article that they got an anonymous tip saying that Bryan Colangelo was the owner of 5 Twitter accounts that was bashing Joel Embiid, bashing former players like Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor, also bashing Markelle Fultz. Also apparently laid out the trade details for the Fultz-Boston swap that happened in the 2017 NBA draft. Also, I believe there was a lot of pushing towards the national media and the Philadelphia media, calling out Ja, calling out Embiid, calling out Fultz. So this is a crazy thing that's going on. We've also heard more developments where the Philadelphia 76ers are now investigating this internally with a New York law firm. We also have seen people do internet sleuths where they have tried to hack into the Colangelo accounts and saw the phone numbers that were attached to these accounts. The one that Colangelo admitted that he was using ended in a 7-5 number, which was Colangelo's number, and now 3 of the other 5, so I think one of them has not had the number pop up, but 3 of the other ones have popped up with a 9-1 number at the end, which apparently is the same 9-1 that has Bryan Colangelo's wife ending of the same phone number. So far we've heard that there should be an announcement by the end of Friday. It is the end of Friday. We have heard nothing yet. So we are going with the assumption, though, that this has happened so quickly, that this is developing so quickly, that Bryan Colangelo is getting fired. First off, what is your reaction to this whole thing, Ricky? What are you thinking? What are your thoughts about this in Philly and Bryan Colangelo?
When the Ringer article first came out, I didn't want to be like, oh, they're lying. But my first thought was like, this can't be true. Like, what? It was more of like, this can't be true. What GM would do that? It would be like if I created an account and then went on to our videos bashing you guys. Or like if you guys did that to one of us. That's what this is. And like, Joel Embiid, he tweets out like, oh, a funny thing, like, oh, Sam Hinkie's a better GM than you, burner account, and then does the, yeah, I don't believe it. But like, now that all this comes out, my whole thing is, it made me think of a line that my mom used to say, where it's like, loose lips sink ships. And that's what this is, where even if it's his wife burner account, that means to me, it sounds like you're going home, you're telling her, you like, and both of you have the loose lips to where now you're going to go out and bash, even if you're telling her all this information. What if you weren't supposed to tell her that information? And for me, I think it's a bonehead move by Colangelo, and it's probably going to cost him his job.
I think a couple things come to mind when I first read this article was, I was really impressed. It was actually a really well-written article, like top to bottom.
They hit him hard.
Like Ricky said, like my first sight of it was like, this can't be real. As soon as I read it, I was like, holy shit, this is legitimate. Like, this is top to bottom. They've done their homework. Super well written, super in depth, and honestly, like, got me laughing because Ricky says, oh no, it's ridiculous to think that he did this. And I'm like, I guarantee you there are other GMs, there are other people in ownership who have accounts out there.
Well, we obviously saw the KD stuff, too.
Talk public. Yeah, I think everybody wants to have their own opinion heard on things, and there's a lot of things you can't say with your own name attached to it. In the past, it was like you'd have a middleman to go talk to a reporter, you know, behind closed doors somewhere to leak a story from the clubhouse, the locker room. Like, this is nothing new. This is just new technology being used for it.
Well, and it's funny, too, that even after this story came out, there was one post on r/NBA on Reddit that's saying that there was suspicion of a Hassan Whiteside burner account that was public that went to private. And it's funny because the profile picture is Hassan Whiteside with a kid, but someone photoshopped the head of the kid to be Joel Embiid. So it was pretty great. And we saw that go to private. And one thing, too, as well, and Ben Dietrich, shout out from him from The Ringer, he's the one that wrote this article. Yeah. He also said that the 5 accounts that were pinpointed were at Phila 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, also at Elvic 40 11 75 60, also at Honesta 34 19 71 18, also at Unknown Soul, which was the one that Colangelo confirmed that he was using, was at Unknown Soul, and then also still balling at S_Bonhams. And the thing was that 3 of those accounts went to private after Colangelo was questioned and pushed
about
on. 2
other accounts, right?
Yeah, so I think he was pushed about on 2 accounts.
And then the other 3 went private.
The other 3 went private. Or it's one of that happened. I think.
Got it.
Yeah, well, no, I don't know if it's the 3 other ones happened, but 3 of the accounts did go private.
Yeah.
I don't know if all of them did go private. But the point is that it looks like the efforts are going against Colangelo, and that Colangelo will be fired. Hence the reason why this segment is titled what happens with the 76ers after Colangelo is fired. So, Ricky, I'm going to throw it to you.
Okay.
What happens to Philadelphia after Colangelo is fired? What are the next moves? How do they make up for this kind of mess that's happening?
Well, my next move and what I think they'll do kind of coincide together is I think that Dave Griffin is the best guy to be the next GM of the 76ers. You can bring him in, and he's a well-known GM, did great work in Cleveland, helped him win a championship. Then you also have the side of why I think they should do it and why I would do it. Your biggest goal this offseason is to bag LeBron James. How do you bag LeBron James and get him in a Philly uniform? You hire his former GM, make him feel comfortable.
Well, and Dave, before we go into the LeBron James, David Griffin rabbit hole, I do want to bring up that also Colangelo was bashing current Raptors president Masai, where Colangelo was the former GM, and then also he was bashing former Sixers GM Sam Hinkie. And I know you love Hinkie. I know you love trust the process. What do you think, though? How does this look for the league? Because obviously this is horrible. Yeah. Silver's pissed off. This is taking away from the finals. And obviously we see the whole thing where Hinkie was forced out. They brought in Colangelo while Hinkie was still the GM. And then they push Hinkie out right away once the season's over and Colangelo takes a spot. So how does this look for the league where the owners were pushing for Hinkie out and now they push a guy in Colangelo who is now getting fired for toxic, at least behavior on Twitter?
Yeah, no. I think it's honestly a little bit of smudge on them. It's staying honestly on their nice thing. They just had one of the best seasons ever, one of the most viewership up, sales up, merch up, everything's looking positive. They're taking on the world now with their game, and honestly it comes back to, all right, the guy I picked, handpicked, was Colangelo. He comes from a great family, he comes from highly respected, he's one of the smartest guys in the league, period. You can't take that away from him. Yes, he acted unprofessionally in this case, and yes, it's now costing him his job, you a little bit of your reputation. And this franchise, which was going to be the budding franchise of the future East, now has a giant question mark because, A, how do you trust an organization that allowed this to go on? And B, how do you recover from this? How do you set back? They're lucky to have a face of the franchise in Joel Embiid who's so outspoken, who then can draw. He's still going to pull people in there. People still want to play with Joel Embiid. So I think that getting another GM in won't be a problem. Getting someone who attracts other superstars doesn't even need to happen. You go get the guy who's the best fit for the role because the guys who are going to recruit are on the court.
And the quick thing I just want to add is it almost makes me think from a league standpoint, just don't get your hands involved. The whole Hinkie that now it's looking like don't get rid of Hinkie. Don't force him out to force your guy in because it also brings up, I know this is different where I don't think Adam Silver is like this. I know David Stern was. It's almost like the CP3 trade where it's oh, no, not going to L.A. Oh, wait, Christ. You are going to L.A. You're going to the Clippers. Whereas this one's more like we want Hinkie out because he's ruining the game and tanking and trust the process. And then this happens to the guy you bring in that's supposed to be your golden boy.
Well, and our boy Jake, he tweeted out, Real GM tweeted out, sources expect Bryan Colangelo to lose his job with the 76ers yesterday. That's what the Real GM tweeted, and then Jake commented, yes. So why should Sixers fans, weirdly enough, be excited that Colangelo is fired? Is it because they can put themselves in a situation where LeBron can come to Philly, because I know that's what you want to talk about, or do you think it should be looked at as a negative thing? Because, again, we see the NBA forcing out Hinkie. Where the fans love Hinkie, what he's done for Philadelphia, and then he gets uprooted and taken away from his baby, his process. Obviously, that looks like a negative. And now, the guy that took over his job, Colangelo, getting kicked out. How does this help them get LeBron James, or do you think it hurts them with the whole Colangelo situation?
Depends on who. There's only one way this helps them get LeBron James. That's if they hire Dave Griffin. I told you guys before we recorded today, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity that they get to, all right, we can fire Colangelo and we can bring in David Griffin. Because to me, the big thing is the two things one thing I'm hearing from everywhere that they talk about LeBron is that he's said that he wants to play more off ball next year. Well, in Philly, you can play off ball because Ben Simmons will be your point forward. But if you bring in a GM like David Griffin, that's just right now, LeBron is dealing with he said with Rachel Nichols, a working relationship with Dan Gilbert. This would be a much more comfortable relationship. This would put LeBron in a way better mood and a way better mindset if a part of the 76ers.
Dave, one thing we did see, though, when LeBron did leave Cleveland, that he didn't go to a familiar situation. He didn't work with Pat Riley before. He didn't work with Spoelstra before, and obviously that didn't work out right away.
Well, it was his
as
buddies.
obviously the Spoelstra. Yeah, it was the players on the court that you mentioned.
Right.
So even if they don't bring in Griffin, do you think it's enough for Philly to still bring in LeBron James, even with the current ongoings that just happened with Bryan Colangelo?
Yeah, I think it would be. I honestly think it would be huge for them to do. I don't know that it would be the biggest problem in the world. One of the things to even think back is David Griffin, I mean, when he initially was there, he was pretty much set up with the, like, I'm in for the rebuild. We're going to have a young team. He's the one who brought in David Blatt. He's the guy who LeBron literally kicked out after having a winning season and then being...
Midway through this season.
Midway through a winning season again. So I don't think it's going to be a problem. I really don't.
But that's, like, that issue isn't a problem because unless you feel like the new GM would fire Brett Brown.
Well, they just signed him to a 2-year contract.
So the day this came out, they
locked
re-upped
in.
him until 2021.
I mean, they can burn money, I guess. It just would be really uncharacteristic. So I don't know that. That's the one question is, like, Brett Brown being an attractive head coach for him, maybe.
Well, and for the 76ers, I'm going back to before I get into this next point. If they hire David Griffin, I feel like that just can only help them in the LeBron sweepstakes.
Yeah,
but for me, if, let's say, the series that we're watching, the finals, goes like we think it's going to go, to me, there's two choices. He either goes to Houston or either goes to Philly. And if the news of him wanting to play...
What do you mean goes the way it goes?
Like, the Warriors win in 4 or 5.
Okay.
Like, many of us feel like that'll happen. I know you said in our first segment 6, but even if it is a Warrior win, he's going to Houston or he's going to Philly. And if the things that everyone's saying, I know Chris Broussard's one of them, where it's like, oh, he wants to play more off ball next year. Well,
how much do we trust?
I'm just saying.
I know. I'm just throwing.
Which place is he going to have more of a chance to play off ball? Philly compared to Houston. And I'm only saying that because CP3's injury history.
Houston, though.
If
James Harden's still primary ball
James Harden.
No, I know that, but
the man likes to dribble.
He
was
won't,
assist leader last 2 years ago.
He won't be like in Houston. He's gonna have to handle the ball more so than he may want to. I'm not saying it's
I disagree with that.
I'm not saying it would go against him, but I'm saying Philly might be the better choice if that's really what he wants.
I disagree with that.
I think
you have 2 point guards out on the floor in CP3 and James Harden, where even if you do have Ben Simmons out there, you have Ben Simmons, but he's worse than Chris Paul and James Harden. Sorry, I know you had him in your top 10, but I feel that, weirdly enough, Ben Simmons is worse than James Harden and Chris Paul. And also, even then, you look at, even if Chris Paul's injured, you still have a guy that LeBron James does like in Chris Paul, one of his buddies, and also you still have James Harden to fall back on. What's the fallback plan if Ben Simmons gets injured? We've seen him get injured before. We've seen Joel Embiid get injured before.
Yeah.
I think it might be safer for, at least if he does want to play off ball, I think it might be safer if he does go to Houston because, again, we saw that Houston had great success against Golden State, one of the only teams to take this team to 7 games. And now you're adding LeBron James, who just scored 51 points on this team, and he can do that off ball. So I think, especially with what just happened with Bryan Colangelo, that stink that's happening, and this team possibly being too young, I think this move and what Colangelo's done might shift the needle towards CP3, James Harden, and Houston. Dave, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the team outlook really fits well for Houston. For Philly, I think that it's almost like a lie to himself. He says he wants to play off ball. Well, guess what? Like you said, Ben Simmons is their only point guard. Markelle Fultz is still a question mark. Who knows what's going to happen if signing LeBron turns into a sacrifice the future, trade Fultz and something for Kawhi, pull out all the stops.
And your backup's TJ.
Exactly.
Even though we love him, I mean, is that the quality of a facilitator to help LeBron James play off ball?
No. So that's the thing. LeBron will never be an outside, like, spot-up three-point shooter. That's just not who he is. He dominates through ball in his hands. Yes, he could play second fiddle to someone, but I don't think that he'll truly ever get to that point. I think the Houston match fits really well. And go ahead.
No, you finish yours. I was going to...
And for the 76ers, don't say well then. For the 76ers, it comes down to, like, even fit for me. Like, this is a team that, yes, they gutted out their team, and they're literally mid-season pickups saved them in a playoff run between Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova. Like, those were 2 guys they got for nothing in mid-season. If they can get contract-friendly between those 2 and J.J. Redick, yes, then you have another team. But like Sean said, Joel Embiid's injury history says I shouldn't trust that team. So I'm still leaning towards the Rockets.
The thing that I was just going to say is I don't want to get anything twisted. I think that the Rockets are, to me, LeBrockets will probably happen. But I mean, thing is...
So that's even if they hire Griffin?
Yeah. Well, I think that the Griffin hire can only help them.
Yeah, so I'm saying, even with the Griffin help...
But do you think it puts them over the Rockets?
If I was putting my money on it, I would say the Rockets because the Rockets came these close to beating the Warriors.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one thing I was just going to add on
and with
is
LeBron, they would.
You look at their three future guys in Philadelphia. Ben Simmons hurt his first year. Joel Embiid has been hurt for his first 2 years and has been hurt, in the 2 years he has played. And even Markelle Fultz as well, where he's been injured as well. So you don't know who's going to be on the floor.
With the Rockets as well, but it's only one with CP3.
But also CP3 is his buddy.
Yeah,
like
I know.
CP3, and I understand that Ben Simmons comes from the same agency, but it's different where LeBron and CP3 have made that bond. Yes, CP3 might not be on the floor, but he also is playing with one of his buds.
It's like
CP3.
Part 2.
No, exactly, and it's in a better situation where Chris Paul is going to be able to help this team out more. And also, Chris Paul is... And no offense to Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, or Markelle Fultz. I'm not trying to bash these guys by saying this, but CP3 is more motivated than those guys. CP3's been in the league. He knows his time's running up. We saw this in the last game.
Close to the finals.
Exactly.
He literally carried Harden out of horrible performances.
We saw this in the playoffs where he was able to take over, and I don't think, like Ben Simmons showed in the playoffs this year, not able to take over. Markelle Fultz wasn't playing in the playoffs. And we look at Joel Embiid. He wasn't fantastic. I mean, he made some boneheaded mistakes, and he's still going to have to get over that hump where CP3 is motivated. Yes, he might not be there. He might have an injury, but also that's one guy compared to three, and also you have a more motivated, veteran, skilled player in CP3 over Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Markelle Fultz. So I think one thing is with 76ers is I think this massively hurts them because if Colangelo was there, you have a sense of stability. You have a sense of, all right, we're building towards something. We have the 10th pick. We're going to be adding on something to this team. Maybe we even go out and get a Kawhi Leonard. And we have a GM that has made so far moves to help this team, like bring in Ilyasova, like bring in Bellinelli, like sign JJ Redick and make sure he was on our team. I think that would have helped it because it shows stability. We just re-signed Brett Brown to a contract 2021, and now you have Colangelo now being on the rocks, being fired. You see the instability in the players. I think the cracks are now showing in this Philly team where maybe this Philly team wasn't ready. They over-succeeded, and now these expectations are being thrown through the roof where, hey, if we get LeBron, now we're going to be an NBA Finals team where if they don't get LeBron, where's this team going to end up playoff-wise? Because, yes, Ben Simmons was fantastic last year. Joel Embiid, when he was healthy, was fantastic. But also, this team needed a 15-game winning streak to put them where they were in the playoffs.
It's like they're not going to drop out of the playoff standings.
No, but I'm saying that this team needed a crazy end to the season to put them where they were in the seed at a 3 seed. If this team was a 7 seed going up against Boston, this be the same? Would this team be going as far as they did in the playoffs? Would this team being, you picked them to go to the finals?
Yeah.
If they didn't have that end of the year run, would they be in the situation where they were this year? So with Houston, I think it's more of a stable situation because you look at Daryl Morey. This guy has made great move after great move.
Minus Ryan Anderson.
Minus Ryan Anderson. Mike
Could
D'Antoni.
Get rid of that with a sign and trade for LeBron.
Mike D'Antoni is a guy that's proven that he's been able to win the playoffs before. He hasn't won a finals, but more than Brett Brown. So I look at Houston, and you just see stability. Where you look at at least the 76ers, and you see potential.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing is I think this severely damages Philadelphia's chances to get LeBron James. I think severely damages their ability to at least look like a stable organization.
To piggyback off your point about how these teams can succeed going forward, we saw it off of the back of the stars in Houston. Yes, role players had games, but the stars it was incredible performances by James Harden, incredible performances by Chris Paul, and then you had role players after that. Meanwhile, on the Philadelphia 76ers, like I mentioned earlier, it was role players exceeding expectations left and right. Yes, Ben Simmons did a lot to get them there, but it was the role players shooting incredibly hot that got them through the playoffs, or into the playoffs, and then as far as they made it in the playoffs. They only went as far as, guys, I'm sorry, if you're in the playoffs in the second round, and I'm counting on Marco Bellinelli making shots to get me through to the next round.
Still did it.
I mean, he did. Look, the man takes off-balance shots like he was born to do it. It's incredible. But my point being, that should not be your hope. And why you're winning games at that point, you should want to rely on the guys who can, force you to win games. And that's what LeBron James has with 2 other stable guys in Houston.
And another thing, too, is, yes, they just re-signed Brett Brown, but what were a ton of Phillies fans saying after that series against Boston. They were saying fire him because he was getting out coached, just getting torched by Brad Stevens, coming out of timeouts, coming out. The
lineups were
on every
terrible.
Game.
He didn't know how to keep the momentum of the game in pace. He subbed back in Ben Simmons to lose a game, basically. Like T.J. McConnell, again, another role player, having a phenomenal playoff performance. It was standalone to the series, but still, he was what was winning them the game in the series. And I was like, nah, I'm putting Ben back in. I'm gonna trust my guy.
And what if Bron signs and they just they don't hit those expectations? What if Ben Simmons isn't ready to be the guy, to be the number 2 to LeBron James? That's a lot to ask for. It took Kevin Love years to do that. Kyrie wanted out because he didn't want to be doing that. Yes, maybe he wanted to be a number 1. Maybe it wasn't solely because he wanted to be the number 2 to LeBron.
It's only a job for one man, D Wade. D Wade can only be the number 2 for LeBron.
CP3 could do it, or I think James Harden can do it. But I'm saying it's a lot of pressure to put on a guy right away, especially Joe. I think Joe could probably handle it more than Ben could.
Yeah.
But even then, Markelle Fultz, a guy that could barely play because he couldn't get his jump shot down. Now he's going to need to be a bench player, a role player with LeBron James. Like, I just look at this, and this is unstable. And now the Colangelo thing just kind of reeks of it. And I think that's the biggest thing that's going to hurt them, not only for their chances for LeBron, but also just for any other free agents. Because now you look at J.J. Redick, and it's like, all right, I just took a ton of money, and I made a great amount of money taking that contract. I just had a great year. Why would I want to go back to Philadelphia that, yes, gave me that money, but also Colangelo, who gave me that money, isn't here anymore? We look like a team that's a little bit on the rocks, and maybe I could go to a team, take a lesser contract because I just got a ton of money, and make sure I get a ring because, hey, my clock's running up a little bit. I'm becoming 34 years old.
And that's why also kind of to think about it a little more, too, is I think that if they keep Colangelo, which we're not expecting them to do, that's the only way this hurts them. If they get rid of him, then it's like
it helps them,
right,
but I think this...
we're wiping our hands clean. It's not going to be a complete turnover of like, oh, we forgot about it. But to me, it's who you bring in next. And the reason why I'm going to circle back to David Griffin has nothing to do with LeBron. You mentioned it, though. In Cleveland, he was all for the rebuild. What better way to bring in a guy who's already had that experience kind of rebuilding a team before LeBron kind of shot in the arm to it?
Think about it, though. He didn't make the moves. He went out. LeBron wanted supporting cast, so he traded their number 1 pick in Wiggins to go get Kevin Love. He traded off pieces to go get J.R. Smith and Shump. Like he
could do the same thing.
He's not afraid to make moves to get things done, and I think that's what LeBron wants because LeBron did it himself, and that's the question is like, now that we see it happening without him there, I'm like, how much was David Griffin? How much was LeBron James influence?
Remember, he's going to milk every ounce out of this team.
For every good move, too, he's also made bad moves, like re-up Tristan Thompson to that deal, re-up J.R. Smith. So again, like for every good move, there's bad moves to GMs. It's just how much can you bear. I just look at, again, like you look at the track record of Daryl Morey, you look at the track record of the Rockets. I think that this puts them in the lead. And we saw in Vegas, Philadelphia was the lead. Their odds went down. I think Houston is the odds-on favorite now to sign LeBron James. And I think you look at Philadelphia, they might be hurting their chances to finish as high as they did in the playoffs last year. Will they still make the playoffs? Yes, the East is completely weak. But will they finish third? If LeBron stays for another year, Boston's the way it is, we see teams that are up and coming, like Toronto's still going to have the players they have.
Up and coming.
I don't know if. Well, no. Let's say the
Toronto
Pacers
might even finish first or like in the top 3 of the standings in the East again because
that's
they're
what I'm saying.
A stacked team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They're not up and coming.
I was thinking of an up and coming team, but I didn't want to disrespect the Rockets. I was going to throw the Pacers out there because they're up and coming too, especially depending on the moves they make. Milwaukee as well when they make their head coaching change.
Tons of potential in the East.
It's a thing where Philadelphia, if this is an unstable environment, they can fall down in the standings, and they could be going from hosting a first-round playoff game or series to going to Boston as a 7th seed to take on Boston again in the first round and making your trek to the NBA Finals much more difficult.
Let's be completely honest, though. In my mind, if LeBron goes to Houston, then the East is not wide open. It's Boston's to lose, basically, in my mind.
But the thing is we can't rule out also the fact with LeBron, because this is a 76er segment, is that he could still sign a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the Sixers, though, is you can still go after guys like Paul George. Not a bad consolation prize. So it's you have to make sure that the guy you hire is going to be the right fit, because you have an opportunity now to hit the reset button on that. You get a clear name. The perception of the franchise doesn't have to be tainted for long because of this, because you're doing the right thing. You're clearing house.
Is your number 1 guy Griffin as well as rookies?
I don't have a number 2 guy, so I'm purely going with that. I'll be honest, I don't know the hot names and GMs right now. I didn't do enough homework.
I'll give you one
before figuring this out.
My number 2 would
just did a
be
Google search.
the guy who it's the guy who withdrew from the Detroit Pistons GM job. I'm gonna screw this name up. Gerson Rosas. He's with the Rockets. He's an executive with the Rockets.
You didn't just Google search that?
No, I'm looking at Woj's Twitter.
Okay. All right.
It's good getting a reference, though.
Anyways, I think one thing, though, it's going to affect the 76ers massively. Whether it comes to LeBron, whether it comes to free agency. Also, what's Joel Embiid's reaction going to be when Colangelo does get fired? Because Colangelo said, it wasn't me. And Joel Embiid came out and was like, oh, it wasn't him. But if the 76ers fire him, it's pretty much saying, all right, yeah, it was him. Or at least it was his wife.
I think already
or at least
we know it's him.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying, like, that's going to hurt Joe because Joe was just lied to again. And Joe is your centerpiece.
And he's very vocal.
He's very vocal. It could be detrimental. Maybe, again, you just re-signed him, so it's not going to take away Joe from this team, but it might affect his play on the court.
Didn't they also tell Joe, not like, hey, don't go after players on Twitter?
They asked him.
Didn't they tell him that?
He's not gonna do it.
I say
he's making. They're paying him. They're not gonna release.
He's
Joel
got his contract.
Embiid.
He's going out there playing street ball in Philly, bouncing balls off people's faces. That was so good.
If you're in Philly, hit up your local park and get dunked down by Joel Embiid. I wish we were there right now. But anyways,
so amazing.
It was not gonna because we're not done with the podcast. But anyways, let us know your topics and thoughts about Bryan Colangelo and the burner accounts that he had.